The rain lashed against the reinforced glass of the emergency bay doors, a relentless, rhythmic drumming that seemed to echo the frantic beating of hearts inside St. Jude's Metropolitan Hospital. It was 2:14 a.m. on a Tuesday, the hour when the city's pulse slowed, but for the trauma team in Bay 4, the night was just beginning to scream. The air smelled of antiseptic, wet wool, and the metallic tang of adrenaline. In the center of the chaos lay a man who looked less like a patient and more like a broken statue, his body wrapped in tactical gear that had been cut away with shears, revealing skin mapped with scars and fresh, jagged wounds. He was unconscious, intubated, and bleeding out faster than the nurses could replace the blood. Standing at the foot of the gurney was Elena Vance. To the casual observer, she was invisible. She was the quiet nurse, the one who fetched supplies without being asked, the one who nodded politely when spoken to and vanished when the work was done. She wore her scrubs a size too large, as if trying to shrink herself further into the background. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, practical bun, not a strand out of place, and her eyes, a calm, steady gray, watched the monitors with an intensity that went unnoticed by the shouting doctors around her. Dr. Marcus Thorne, the attending physician on duty, was barking orders with the confidence of a man who believed he was the smartest person in every room he entered. He was young for his position, ambitious, and possessed a cruelty that he masked as efficiency. He glanced at Elena, his lip curling slightly. "Vance," he snapped, not looking up from the patient's chest. "Stop staring and get me another unit of O-negative, and try not to drop it this time." Elena didn't flinch. She didn't argue. She simply turned, her movements fluid and silent, and walked toward the blood bank refrigerator. But as she moved, her hand brushed against the patient's arm, checking the pulse not with the clumsy grab of a novice, but with the precise, two-fingered press of someone who had counted heartbeats in the dark under fire where a second's hesitation meant death. She felt the rhythm. It was erratic, thready, but familiar. Too familiar. The hospital corridor was a blur of fluorescent lights and hurried footsteps. Elena moved through it like a ghost, her mind racing not with fear but with calculation. She knew who the patient was, not by name perhaps, but by the tattoo on his shoulder partially obscured by blood and bandages, a trident intertwined with an anchor, the mark of a specific unit, a specific brotherhood. She knew the pattern of his injuries, the blast fragmentation to the lower left quadrant. The blunt force trauma to the ribs consistent with a vehicle rollover. The burn marks on his hands from handling hot machinery or weapons. This wasn't a random accident. This was a mission gone wrong. And the man lying in Bay 4 was not just a victim, he was a predator who had been hunted. Back in the trauma bay, the atmosphere was thick with tension. Dr. Thorne was losing control. The patient's blood pressure was dropping precipitously. "He's crashing," Thorne shouted, his voice rising an octave. "Get the defibrillator, charged to 200. Elena returned with the blood bag, her face impassive. She handed it to the circulating nurse, then stepped closer to the gurney. She saw what Thorne missed. The patient's neck was distending slightly. A tension pneumothorax was developing, collapsing his lung and pressing on his heart. If they shocked him now, without relieving the pressure, they would kill him. "Doctor," Elena said, her voice low but cutting through the noise. "He has a tension pneumo. You need to decompress before you shock." Thorne whipped around, his eyes blazing with indignation. "I didn't ask for your diagnosis, Nurse Vance. I asked for the blood. Stick to your lane, prepare the IVs." The other nurses exchanged glances. Some looked sympathetic, others relieved they weren't the ones in Elena's shoes. Everyone knew Thorne's reputation. He bullied the staff, took credit for successes, and blamed others for failures. Elena had been his target for months. She was too quiet, too competent, too unassuming. She didn't play the game of ego, and that made her dangerous to men like Thorne. Elena stepped back. She didn't argue. She didn't raise her voice. She simply watched, her hands clasped loosely in front of her, ready. She knew the protocol, she knew the anatomy, and she knew that if Thorne proceeded, the man on the table would die. And with him, a secret would die, a secret that Elena had carried for 5 years, a secret that defined who she was before she became the quiet nurse in the oversized scrubs. If you are enjoying the tension building in this story, please take a moment to hit the like button. It helps us bring these narratives to life and ensures you don't miss the next chapter of Elena's journey. Your support means world to our community of storytellers. The monitor let out a shrill, continuous tone. Flatline. "I'm losing him," Thorne yelled, clear, shocking. Elena closed her eyes for a fraction of a second. In that darkness, she wasn't in the hospital. She was in a dusty compound in Kandahar. The air was thick with smoke and the smell of cordite. She was holding a radio, her hands steady despite the chaos around her. She was calling in coordinates. She was saving lives. She was Ghost. The shock jolted the body on the table. Nothing. The line remained flat. Again, charged to 300, Thorne screamed. Alina opened her eyes. She saw the distension in the neck again. She saw the slight deviation of the trachea. She knew she had seconds. If she acted, she would be insubordinate. She would be fired. Maybe worse. But if she didn't act, a hero would die and the truth would be buried with him. She moved. It wasn't a run. It was a glide. She stepped between Thorne and the patient, her hand reaching for the tray of instruments. She grabbed a large-bore needle, the kind used for emergency decompression. "Vance, get back," Thorne roared, reaching for her arm. Alina sidestepped him with a grace that surprised everyone in the room. In one smooth motion, she identified the second intercostal space, mid-clavicular line, and drove the needle in. There was a hiss of escaping air, a sound like a sigh of relief from the earth itself. The monitor beeped once, twice. Then a rhythm emerged, sinus tachycardia but strong. The blood pressure began to climb. The room fell silent. The only sound was the rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor and the heavy breathing of the staff. Thorne stood frozen, his hand still outstretched, his face a mask of shock and humiliation. He looked at the needle in the patient's chest, then at Alina. She was already stepping back, her hands raised slightly, palms open, showing she held no weapon, no threat, just competence. "I relieved the tension pneumothorax," Alina said, her voice steady. "You can proceed with resuscitation now." Thorne's face turned purple. He wanted to scream. He wanted to fire her on the spot, but he couldn't. The patient was alive. The data was on the screen. He had been wrong and she had been right, and everyone had seen it. We often underestimate the quiet ones, don't we? If this moment of quiet competence resonated with you, consider subscribing to the channel. We dive deep into stories where integrity triumphs over ego and where the unseen heroes finally get their due. Join us as we uncover more tales of hidden strength. The rest of the shift passed in a tense silence. Thorne avoided Alina's eyes, issuing orders through clenched teeth. The patient, stabilized, was transferred to the ICU. Alina returned to her duties, fetching supplies, charting vitals, disappearing into the background once more. But the dynamic had shifted. The other nurses looked at her with new respect. The residents whispered in the break room. Who was she? How did she know to do that? It wasn't just luck. It was training. Elite training. Alina ignored the whispers. She kept her head down. She knew that visibility was dangerous. She had spent 5 years trying to be invisible, trying to escape the shadow of her past. She had changed her name. She had moved across the country. She had traded her tactical gear for scrubs, her rifle for a stethoscope. She thought she was safe. But the arrival of the man in Bay 4 had cracked the facade. And cracks, once started, tend to spread. The next morning, the hospital administration called her into HR. Dr. Thorne was there, along with the chief of nursing, a stern woman named Patricia Halloway who valued hierarchy over heroism. "Nurse Vance," Halloway said, her voice cold, "we have received a complaint from Dr. Thorne regarding your conduct during last night's code. He alleges that you interfered with a medical procedure, acted outside your scope of practice, and endangered a patient." Alina sat quietly, her hands folded in her lap. "I saved the patient's life, Ms. Halloway. He had a tension pneumothorax. Dr. Thorne was about to defibrillate a patient with a collapsed lung. That would have been fatal." "Dr. Thorne is the attending physician," Halloway said sharply. "His judgment is final. You are a nurse. Your role is to assist, not to diagnose or perform surgical interventions. Even if you were right, your method was insubordinate and reckless." "Reckless?" Alina asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Leaving a tension pneumothorax untreated while shocking the heart is reckless. Relieving the pressure is standard trauma protocol." "Standard protocol requires a doctor's order," Thorne interjected, smirking. "Unless you're claiming you're a doctor, Vance, or perhaps something else, something you're hiding." Halloway leaned forward. "Nurse Vance, we value teamwork here. We value respect for the chain of command. Your actions, regardless of the outcome, disrupted that chain. We are placing you on administrative leave pending an investigation. You are to surrender your badge and keys immediately." Alina felt a cold knot form in her stomach. This was it, the injustice she had feared. She had saved a life and she was being punished for it. She looked at Thorne, seeing the triumph in his eyes. He didn't care about the patient. He cared about power, and he had won. She stood up slowly. She reached into her pocket and pulled out her badge. She placed it on the table. I did my job, she said. I hope you can say the same. She walked out of the office, her head high but her heart heavy. She had lost her livelihood. She had lost her cover. And she knew with a sinking feeling that this was only the beginning. It's moments like these that test our resolve. If you believe in standing up for what's right, even when the odds are stacked against you, please leave a comment below sharing a time you had to speak up against injustice. Your stories inspire us all. Let's build a community of courage. Elena walked out of the hospital into the bright, harsh sunlight of the morning. The city was waking up, oblivious to the drama that had unfolded within those walls. She felt exposed. Without her badge, without her uniform, she was just a woman with a secret, and secrets have a way of catching up. She drove home to her small apartment on the edge of the city. It was sparse, functional. No photos on the walls, no personal mementos, just books on medicine, tactics, and psychology. She sat on her couch, staring at the blank television screen. What would she do now? She couldn't go back to nursing, not here, not with Thorne waiting to crush her. She had savings enough to last a few months, but she needed a purpose. She needed to know who the patient was. Her phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number, Bay 4. Code name, Titan, he's asking for you. Elena's breath caught. Titan, the call sign. She hadn't heard it in 5 years. She remembered the man who bore it. Commander Jack Sterling, SEAL Team 6, her former commanding officer, her friend. The man who had pulled her out of the rubble in Kandahar. The man who had told her to run, to hide, to live. She stared at the phone. Was it a trap? Was it Thorne trying to dig up dirt on her? Or was it real? She typed back, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. "You know who it is, Ghost. He's awake, and he's not happy." Ghost, the name she had buried, the name that had haunted her dreams. She stood up, pacing the small room. She couldn't ignore it. If Sterling was awake, if he was asking for her, it meant something. It meant the past had found her, and this time she wouldn't run. She changed her clothes, pulling on a simple jacket and jeans. She looked in the mirror. The quiet nurse was gone. In her place was someone harder, sharper, someone who remembered how to fight. Before we follow Elena back into the lion's den, make sure you've hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss the confrontation that's coming. It's going to be intense, emotional, and deeply satisfying. Stay with us. Elena drove back to St. Jude's, parking in the visitor lot. She didn't go through the main entrance. She knew the service entrances, the back corridors, the blind spots in the security cameras. Old habits died hard. She slipped into the hospital through a side door, keeping to the shadows. She made her way to the ICU, avoiding the nurses' station. She found Sterling's room at the end of the hall. 2 police officers stood guard outside the door. They looked bored but alert. Elena approached them, keeping her head down. "Visiting hours aren't until 10, one of the officers said, blocking her path. "I'm not a visitor," Elena said softly. "I'm family." The officer scoffed. "Family? He doesn't have any listed next of kin." "He does now," Elena said. She looked the officer in the eye. "Tell him Ghost is here." The officer frowned, confused, but he picked up his radio and spoke into it. A moment later, the door opened. A detective stepped out, a grizzled man with tired eyes. He looked at Elena, really looked at her, and his expression changed. Recognition, fear, respect. "Ms. Vance," he asked. "Elena," she corrected. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. "He's been waiting." Elena entered the room. Sterling lay in the bed, hooked up to more machines than she could count. His face was bruised, his leg in traction. But his eyes were open, and they were locked on hers. "Ghost," he rasped, his voice rough from the intubation tube that had recently been removed. "You look terrible." Elena smiled, a genuine, warm smile that broke through her stoic mask. "You look worse, Jack." He chuckled, then winced in pain. "Thorne," he said, "the doctor, he's a prick." "He's more than that," Elena said, moving to the side of the bed. "He's dangerous. He got me fired today." Sterling's eyes narrowed. "For saving my life." "For stepping out of line," Elena said. "For knowing more than he did." Sterling nodded slowly. "Typical, the world hasn't changed, still punishes the competent to protect the incompetent." He paused, gathering his strength. "Elena, you need to listen to me. This wasn't an accident, the crash, the ambush. It was targeted. They knew I was coming. They knew my route." "Who?" Elena asked. "The Syndicate," Sterling said. "A private military contractor, rogue elements. They've been hunting me for months, because of what I know, because of what we did in Kandahar." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. The Syndicate, she had heard rumors. whispers of a group that operated above the law, selling secrets, selling violence, and they were here, in her city. "Why are they after you?" she asked. "Because I have the ledger," Sterling said. "Names, dates, payments. Every dirty deal they've made for the last 10 years, it's encrypted, on a drive, hidden." "Where?" Elena asked. Sterling looked at her, his gaze intense. "With you." Elena blinked. "What?" "In Kandahar," Sterling said. "When we evacuated, I gave you the drive, told you to keep it safe, to hide it, you forgot." Elena's mind raced. She remembered the chaos. The explosion, Sterling handing her a small, black object. "Keep this safe, Ghost. Don't let them get it." She had tucked it into her medkit. She had brought it with her when she fled. She had forgotten about it in the years of hiding, of trying to be normal. But it was still there, in her apartment, in the false bottom of her old medic bag. "I have it," she whispered. "Good," Sterling said, "because they're coming for it, and they're coming for you, Thorne. He's not just a bad doctor, he's on their payroll. He was supposed to finish me off in the ER, make it look like a medical error, but you stopped him." Elena felt the weight of the revelation settle on her shoulders. Thorne wasn't just arrogant, he was a murderer, a hired gun in a white coat, and she had thwarted his plan. "What do we do?" she asked. "We expose them," Sterling said. "But we need help, we need someone with authority, someone they can't bully." "Who?" Elena asked. Sterling smiled faintly. "I made a call before I lost consciousness. I called in a favor from the top." The stakes have never been higher. If you're on the edge of your seat, share this video with a friend who loves a good thriller. Let's spread the word about Elena's fight for justice. Together, we can amplify these stories. An hour later, the hospital administrator's office was in chaos. Patricia Halloway was pacing, her phone pressed to her ear. Dr. Thorne was sitting in a chair, looking smug. He had just filed the final paperwork to terminate Elena Vance's employment. He felt victorious. He had removed the obstacle. He had protected his secret, or so he thought. The door burst open, not with a knock, but with a force that shook the frame. Standing in the doorway was a man in a crisp, dark suit. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with silver hair and eyes that looked like they had seen everything and judged it all wanting. Behind him stood two men in military fatigues, their posture rigid, their expressions unreadable. Halloway dropped her phone. "Can I help you?" she stammered. The man in the suit stepped into the room. He didn't look at Halloway, he looked at Thorne. "Dr. Marcus Thorne," he said. His voice was calm, but it carried a weight that filled the room. "I am Admiral James Sterling, United States Navy, retired." Thorne's smirk vanished. "Admiral, I don't understand. What are you doing here?" "I am here," the Admiral said, "because my son, Commander Jack Sterling, is a patient in this hospital, and because I have received reports of gross negligence, attempted murder, and corruption involving your staff." Thorne paled. "Attempted murder? That's absurd. I saved his life." "Did you?" the Admiral asked. He walked closer to Thorne, invading his personal space. "Or did Nurse Vance save his life, despite your orders, despite your incompetence?" Halloway tried to intervene. "Admiral, please, this is a misunderstanding. Nurse Vance was insubordinate. We are handling it internally." The Admiral turned to Halloway. "Internally? You mean by firing the only person who acted with integrity? You mean by protecting a doctor who is on the payroll of a criminal organization?" Halloway gasped. "Criminal organization, that's slander." "It's fact," the Admiral said. He pulled a folder from his jacket and tossed it onto the desk. "This is a preliminary report from Naval Intelligence. It details the connections between Dr. Thorne and the syndicate. It details the payments. It details the plan to eliminate my son." Thorne stood up, his hands shaking. "This is ridiculous. I demand you leave. I'll call security." "Security?" the Admiral laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "Look outside, Doctor." Thorne walked to the window. Below in the parking lot, Air 3 black SUVs. Men in tactical gear were surrounding the building, not police, military. "Those are my men," the Admiral said, "and they are not here to arrest you. Yet, they are here to secure the evidence and to ensure that no one leaves this building until the truth is out." Thorne slumped back into his chair. He was trapped. Justice is often slow, but when it arrives, it is undeniable. If you're feeling the satisfaction of seeing the tables turn, please hit the like button. It's a small gesture, but it tells us you're with us in this fight for truth. Elena stood in the hallway, watching the scene unfold through the glass wall of the office. She felt a mix of relief and anxiety. The admiral was here. The cavalry had arrived. But she knew the battle wasn't over. Thorne was scared, but he was also dangerous, and the syndicate was still out there. The admiral exited the office, followed by Thorne, who was now handcuffed by two of the military police. Holloway trailed behind, looking pale and shaken. The admiral spotted Alina. He walked over to her, his expression softening. "Ms. Vance," he said, "or should I say Ghost?" Alina flinched at the name. "Alina is fine, Admiral." "Jack speaks highly of you," the admiral said. "He says you're the best medic he ever served with. He says you saved his life in Kandahar, and now you've saved it again." "I just did my job," Alina said. "No," the admiral said. "You did more than that. You showed courage. You showed integrity, in a world that often rewards the opposite." He gestured to the handcuffed Thorne. "He will be charged with conspiracy, attempted murder, and treason. The evidence is overwhelming, and thanks to you, we have the ledger." Alina touched her pocket, where she had placed the drive after retrieving it from her apartment. "It's safe." "Good," the admiral said. "We'll take it from here, but there's one more thing." He turned to the gathered staff, nurses, doctors, administrators, who had come out to watch the spectacle. "Listen to me," the admiral boomed. "This hospital failed. It failed my son. It failed Nurse Vance. It allowed arrogance and corruption to fester. But today, that ends. I am taking temporary control of this facility's security and administration until a full review is conducted. Anyone involved in covering up Dr. Thorne's actions will be investigated. Anyone who acted with integrity will be recognized." He looked at Alina. "Nurse Vance, you are reinstated with immediate effect, and with a promotion, you will be heading the new trauma response team, if you want it." Alina looked around. She saw the faces of her colleagues. Some looked ashamed. Others looked hopeful. She saw the respect in their eyes. For the first time in 5 years, she didn't feel the need to hide. "I'll take it," she said. "This is the moment we've been waiting for. The vindication, the recognition. If this scene gave you chills, please subscribe. We have many more stories of redemption and justice coming your way. Don't miss out." The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. The hospital underwent a massive overhaul. Thorne was indicted. Holloway resigned. New leadership was brought in. And Alina, no longer the quiet nurse, became the face of the new trauma team. She didn't change her nature. She was still quiet, still calm, still efficient. But now her silence was interpreted as wisdom, not weakness. Her colleagues came to her for advice. The residents respected her. The patients trusted her. One afternoon, she visited Sterling in his room. He was recovering well, his color returning, his strength coming back. "You did good, Ghost," he said, smiling. "We did good, Jack," she corrected. He nodded. "You know you could come back. The teams miss you. The Admiral misses you." Alina shook her head. "No, my place is here in the hospital, saving lives in a different way." Sterling understood. He didn't push. He knew that Alina had found her peace. She had found a way to serve without the violence, without the secrecy. She had found a way to be herself. "But," Sterling added, "if you ever need backup, you know who to call." Alina smiled. "I know." She left the hospital, walking out into the sunlight. The rain had stopped. The sky was clear. She took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the fresh air. She was no longer hiding. She was no longer afraid. She was Alina Vance, nurse, hero, survivor. And she was just getting started. As we wrap up Alina's story, take a moment to reflect. Have you ever been underestimated? How did you prove them wrong? Share your thoughts in the comments. We love hearing from you. Your experiences add depth to our community. The story of Alina Vance is a reminder that kindness is not weakness, that silence is not emptiness. That competence, when paired with integrity, is a force that cannot be suppressed. It may be ignored, it may be mocked, it may be punished, but eventually it will rise, it will shine, and it will change the world. In a society that often values loudness over substance, ego over empathy, Alina chose a different path. She chose to serve. She chose to protect. She chose to stand firm when others would have broken. And in doing so, she not only saved a life, but she restored faith in the system that had failed her. Her journey from the shadows to the spotlight was not easy. It was fraught with danger, injustice, and fear. But it was also filled with moments of profound humanity. The connection with Sterling, the respect of her peers, the admiration of the Admiral, these were the rewards of her integrity. And what of Thorne? He sits in a cell awaiting trial. His career is over. His reputation is shattered. He is a cautionary tale for anyone who believes that power gives them the right to abuse others. He learned too late that true authority comes from respect, not fear, from competence, not arrogance. Alina's story is fictional, but its themes are real. We all face moments where we are tested, where we must choose between speaking up and staying silent, between doing what is easy and doing what is right. Alina chose right, and in doing so, she inspired us all to do the same. Thank you for joining us on this journey. If you enjoyed this story, please consider supporting the channel by becoming a member. Your contributions help us create more high-quality narratives that entertain, inspire, and provoke thought. We appreciate your generosity. The hospital continued to change under Alina's leadership. She implemented new protocols, emphasizing teamwork and mutual respect. She trained the nurses to trust their instincts, to speak up when they saw something wrong. She created a culture where questions were welcomed, not punished. The trauma bay became a place of excellence. Survival rates improved. Patient satisfaction soared. And Alina, once the invisible nurse, became a legend in the halls of St. Jude's. But she never forgot her roots. She never forgot the lessons of Kandahar. She kept her skills sharp. She stayed ready because she knew that peace is fragile, that justice is fleeting, and that vigilance is the price of freedom. One evening, as she left the hospital, she saw a young nurse struggling with a difficult patient. The nurse was tears, overwhelmed by the abuse. Alina stopped. She didn't say much. She just placed a hand on the nurse's shoulder. "Breathe," Alina said. "You're stronger than you know. Don't let them break you." The nurse looked up, seeing the strength in Alina's eyes. She nodded, wiping her tears. "Thank you, Alina." Alina smiled. "Anytime." She walked away into the night. The city lights twinkled around her. She was alone, but she was not lonely. She was part of something bigger, a community of healers, a sisterhood of survivors, and she was proud to be one of them. If this story touched your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Sometimes, a simple story can provide the strength someone needs to keep going. Let's spread positivity and resilience. The legacy of Alina Vance extends beyond the walls of St. Jude's. It extends to every person who has ever been told they are too quiet, too small, too weak. Her story proves that those labels are lies, that true strength is internal, that it comes from character, from conviction, from the willingness to stand alone for what is right. In the end, the title of this story was not just a description of events. It was a promise that kindness would not be mistaken for weakness forever, that the quiet nurse would take charge, and that justice, though delayed, would indeed be served. So the next time you see someone being overlooked, remember Alina. Remember that beneath the surface, there may be a storm of competence waiting to be unleashed. And remember that sometimes, the quietest voices are the ones that need to be heard the most. We are approaching the end of our narrative. If you've stuck with us this far, thank you. Your attention is a gift we do not take lightly. Please consider watching our next video, where we explore another tale of hidden heroes and unexpected victories. The link is in the description. Alina's story is a testament to the human spirit, to its resilience, to its capacity for good. In a world that can often seem dark and cynical, stories like hers remind us that light still exists, that heroes walk among us, often in plain sight, often in scrubs. And so we leave Alina where she belongs, in the hospital, in the trauma bay, ready for the next crisis, ready to save the next life, ready to stand firm against the tide of injustice. She is no longer Ghost. She is Alina, and she is enough. Before we say goodbye, please take a second to like this video. It helps us reach more people with these important messages. Your engagement makes a difference. Thank you for being part of our story. The sun set over the city, casting long shadows across the streets. But in the hospital, the lights burned bright, a beacon of hope, a symbol of healing. And at the center of it all stood Alina Vance, the quiet nurse who took charge. Her journey was over, but her impact would last forever. And that, dear listeners, is the power of a story well told, of a truth revealed, of a justice served. Thank you for listening. If you have any suggestions for future stories, please leave them in the comments. We love hearing your ideas. Who should we feature next? What injustices should we highlight? Your input shapes our content. Let's collaborate. As we close this chapter, let us carry the lesson of Alina Vance with us. Let us be kind but not passive. Let us be quiet but not silent. Let us be competent, and let us use that competence to lift others up. For in the end, it is not the loudest who are remembered. It is the bravest, the kindest, the most true. Alina Vance was all of these, and so can we. Please subscribe if you haven't already. It's free, and it ensures you stay connected with our community. We have exciting things planned for the coming months. Don't miss out on the adventure.